Okay, hello everyone. Today we're going to look over use cases for GitHub for sharing code files with syntax highlighting and collaboration with others. So this assumes that you have a GitHub account. If you don't, it's really simple. Just go to github.com, hit sign up, and provide your email address and create a password. Then you should be brought to a homepage that looks like this. Yours will look different based on who you're following. But in order to get started today, all we have to do is we're going to start with gists or gists. So we're going to go to the top right here. And first I'm just going to show you what one looks like. So if I look at a list of my gists, I have this one called coffee. This is a Python file, and what you can see is we have syntax highlighting for Python keywords and numeric types. And this is all enclosed in a nice little box here. And we can scroll down. And what you can also see is that we can leave comments. So I could comment on this file if I want. We're going to demo this in a second. Further, we can see revisions. So we can see changes to this file. This is just me uploading this. That's the only revision. We are able to embed this file. So we could copy this embed code here, which would embed basically this entire box. That's what would go into a website, but usually you'll want to just share a permalink, which is right here. If you click share the link, copy. Also, if you wanted to provide this file to others, or if others wanted to download this file, you can download it as a zip. And at the very bottom here, at the top, if I hit edit, I can actually add a file, so I could add a new file to this gist. So gists aren't just one file, they can be multiple. And so we can have multiple files in here and they would all be downloaded in a zip. We can star this repo or subscribe it to follow it if we wanted to notice changes. So how do we actually go about creating gists? So to do that, we just go to our little plus button. Let's go back to GitHub proper actually. And we can just hit plus, new gist. I'm going to do this in a new tab. And this brought us back to gist.github.com. We're going to call this one trial1.sass. And I should have some Sass code in my clipboard. I do not. So let's go find that quickly. Importing CSV files, quick copy. And so here on the Sass documentation, you can see we have syntax highlighting. So let's hope we get that on GitHub too, trial1.sass, and we paste. What we notice right away is that, I can give this testing out Sass, is that we give it a file name with an ending, and we really only get coloring on this, on strings, things inside quotes. We can change our spacing and indenting if we need to, and line wrapping, but we're not going to worry about that. I could also add another file. Let's do that, and we'll just call this sass or test2.sass, and we're going to paste the same code. And then what you'll notice at the bottom is that we can create a secret gist or a public gist. So this one is good for providing links to other people where they need the direct link, but it's unaccessible otherwise. We don't really care about that, so we're just going to make it public, since we're going to delete these in a second. And so now we can see our revisions, which basically shows that we added those files. But more importantly, what you'll notice is that now we have syntax highlighting once we create the files. This is the way that gists work. It's somewhat unfortunate. And I can go back in here and I can edit these files, but when I look in this edit mode, there's no preview button or pane, and you just have to edit these. These are usually for quick dirty files that we want to share, or code snippets, very similar to this. What is cool is that if you try to copy this, sometimes your clipboard will copy the numbers, the line numbers. Oops, sorry. So you can actually view the raw version, which then you can very easily copy. Again, also download. Further, if this was a really long-running file, like our coffee file was, if I go back to my gists, coffee. This file is like fairly long, and so if I wanted to highlight something for somebody, I could actually click on line 47. And then I do believe that's in the URL. It is. So then I could provide this URL to somebody and it should redirect them to the correct line. So that's all cool. We can also collaborate on here. So these loading files are the same. We should delete one. I can preview. This is written in Markdown. We also have a WYSIWYG editor here. We can also drag and upload like attachments to our comments if we want, but those aren't included in the gist itself. And so this is a benefit that GIST provide, is that we can do a series of comments directly on the files that are in the gist. So you can see that here, and then somebody else could come in from the team and provide another comment and ask questions. Whoops. So what we're going to do now is we're going to edit, and we are going to delete this file and update. And now we'll notice another revision where this first time we added 2 files. So if we collapse these file changes, we can kind of see changes over time, which is great. And we can go in and look at, on the left-hand side here is what it was before the change, and the right-hand side is what it is. So it was nothing, and then it was a file, or text, and then it was text, and then it was nothing. We can put this together if you prefer this view. One more time, just to emphasize our ease of editing, I'm just going to remove a space and update. You can see this change here, so we can track changes in the file as they go. I think this is an easier view, so we deleted this, so now there's no line there. So that's gists. I think they're useful for commenting on one file or a small code snippet. You can also collaborate with people and share URLs directly so that people, the access is limited without having to worry too much. But what happens when we want a larger file, or we want to upload a bunch of files that we have in a project already? Or maybe we just want to type with syntax highlighting as we type, as we type in the editor. So what we can do for that is we can create a repository. So this is an online, I can show us an example. This is an online series of folders, or just a folder, and you can have subfolders and files. There's a lot to learn about GitHub repositories I'm not going to go into now. Number one thing is that if you call a file readme.md and you make a markdown file, you'll get a really nice markdown preview that can explain your whole repository here in markdown syntax. That's great, and you get a bunch of other things here. But for our use cases, let's just look at how do we create a repo. So we can come up here, click new repository. No template, and I'm just going to call this testing 222. This name only needs to be unique within your ownership. So if you make this on a team, like either one of my teams or organizations, sorry, that's where it needs to be unique, not across all of GitHub. So that's fairly nice. And I'm just going to say testing SaaS stuff. I'm going to make this public because, again, I don't care, and I'm going to delete it soon. We can choose to add a README initially, so let's do that. We don't need a git ignore or a license for this one. And we're going to click Create Repository. And so what this will do, it will create an online folder. And just like before now, we have this view, and you can see there's not as much on it as that other repo. But if we click this code button, we're able to download a zip here, which would download all the files in this repository. So that's good. I'm not going to go into details of Git and things like branches and tags, etc. But what we can do now, because this is a repository, is we're able to share this HTTPS URL or the one up here with others, and they can come in here and they can request to have access to the repository, basically, and they can request changes to be made. Oops, sorry. And so what we can do is we can add a new file here. Let's just add one. And now what you'll see is in addition to just creating a file, we can also upload files. So I'm not going to upload a file, but here you go. Very simple. We can just choose one to upload, and we can add. These are commit changes. So now instead of just adding and saving and we get that little diff that we got before, now we are making new changes. So test2222.sass. And now I'm going to paste in this code. And you'll notice we still don't get syntax highlighting, but if we switch to this preview pane, then we do. And we can kind of go toggle back and forth between these to see our syntax, if syntax is interesting or relevant to us, and how things are playing out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a commit. It says the commit message is to create a file, and I'm going to say created practice file. And we're just going to commit directly. And so when you have new users come in that want to add files, they can either commit directly based on permissions, or they could create a branch and start a pull request, which is what you saw me try a couple minutes ago. And that basically is saying, we'll go through that in a second, but it's basically asking permission to add this file, and it usually has to go through reviewers based on permissions. So cool, now we have our Sass file here, and we can click it and it opens, and we can see it's got syntax highlighting, which is great. We can view the raw version again. I'm pretty sure this copies the code. It does. We can edit. And further, depending on your browser, we can open this in github.dev, which pulls up a VS Code instance in the browser. This is not full VS Code instance in the browser. I think terminal usage is limited, but here, if you're not familiar with VS Code's layout, it's like File Explorer, Search, etc. And we can see our Markdown file here. And we can add like from github.dev, save that. We also have our Sass file here, which has no syntax highlighting due to no extensions, but it is here. We can add more files. And then in our commits pane, we can see our changes. Just like in GitHub, we can add this. Say added to README. We don't care about spelling. And we can commit and push. So what this does, again, not going into the details of Git flow, but basically this just publishes our changes. That's all we need to know. And if we go back, I do believe we can just hit back a couple times. There we go. Go to our repo. And there we can see our change was made. And we can actually view our changes in order if we view this commits log. So we created the Sass file after our initial commit, and then we added that README. That's really good. One last thing. We can also use a File Explorer, go to Files. But let's create a new file here, and this time we're going to make a request. So request.py, print hello from Python. Again, misspellings. We can see we get syntax highlighting. I'd like to add a Python. And I can propose these changes. And so what we'll notice now is this is now a pull request. So we can compare and pull request. I thought it already created, but that's okay. Create pull request. So this is basically creating a request for us to merge this code into the code base. It all looks good. And then depending on your permissions and the permissions of the person doing this, they'll be able to either click merge or not. This is my repo, so I can merge it. So I'm going to merge. Just ask for messages. You can just take the defaults. It's merged, and we just clean up a little bit. And when we go back to the code pane, we see now there's a new commit. The one for adding our Python file, and then the one for merging it, which is great. So we can track exactly what's happening over time, even on requested features. And then we can see our Python file is here. So now this allows us to add image files, Word files, etc. Binary files like Word documents and PDFs won't be visible within the browser. CSV files are visible. VS Code has a nice template, or GitHub has a nice template for that. And we can upload files as well. So this allows us to share bigger projects across multiple people, and for people to request changes to our project easier. The final thing I will say when thinking about repositories versus gists is to use gists if you have a small code sample or snippet and you want to share it with others, probably not going through edits, and have others just have the ability to make comments as needed. What you will notice in repositories is the trade-off. So now we are able to share a lot more different types of files. The size of the files increases, and we get syntax highlighting and a little bit better online editing. However, you'll notice in this file, there is no comment box. So our ability to comment on individual files is taken away. And instead, we comment on changes. So this change I can comment on our commit. And the pull request, even though it's closed, we can go back here and comment on the request for change and say, like, looks good to me. I love Python. And we can comment that. So now we're working more on changes than on the files. So depending on the amount that your files might be changing in a collaborative nature and the size of your project, I would recommend repositories versus gists. So thank you all. I hope this was helpful. Use GitHub. It's great. Share your files. Make them available to the world. The open source community will help you as well when you need it. And have a great day.